My name is Sarah Lefton. I'm the Chief Development Officer at UJA Federation. I'm here today with two of my close colleagues who are working very closely, one of them in Israel, on the ground right now, to make sure that we have a true understanding of what's taking place on the ground, what the needs are, what the Canadian Jewish community can do to help. And really, today is just an opportunity to hear from them directly about what's taking place, what the scope of the needs are at the moment, what the political situation is to the extent that they can comment, and for you to ask questions. And we'll have time for you to do that as well. So if you have questions while they're speaking, please feel free to put them in the chat, or to send us a note in the Q&A. You can ask a question in the Q&A. And we'll make sure that after they've finished just sharing their comments that we can come back to your questions. So thanks so much again for taking the time. If you've just joined, and we're going to dive into the conversation now. We have two wonderful individuals who are here with us today to speak. We have my colleague, Willie Kleinbaum, who's actually on the ground in Israel, and he'll share with you his experience. He is there. He runs UJ Federation in Toronto's team on the ground in Israel full-time. I think many of you know that we rely heavily on his assessment and his team's assessment, not just since October 7th, but before October 7th and always. So we really do have very, very close partnerships with Israel, with Israeli communities, 3 communities in particular, but that we always really have a sense of how we can make the most impactful investments and how we can help the most and how we can target our philanthropy, the community's philanthropy, in a way that really moves the needle. So that's really Willie's job. Willie's the managing director of Israel and overseas for UJ Toronto, but he is in Israel and he's still in Israel now. So he's going to share with us his comments related to what's taking place. Then we will hear from my colleague, Yaron Dekel. Yaron is the regional director to Canada for the Jewish Agency. He's based in Toronto, although he's Israeli. He is the head of the delegation for the Jewish Agency in Canada, and his responsibility is really to promote the relationship between Israelis and the Canadian community and the Jewish community, obviously, in particular. Yaron's background is really tremendous. For more than 3.5 decades, he has been considered one of the most respected and well-known journalists in Israel. His career has been in radio and television, and I mean, really, truly tremendous experience. And so we're very lucky to have him here in Canada with us, leading the Jewish Agency delegation. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Willie to kick us off, and to take us through sort of what's going on the ground. And again, just if you've just joined us, please feel free to share any questions that you have in the Q&A tab at the bottom of the screen. Willie, over to you.
Thank you so much, Sarah, and thank you everyone for joining this afternoon. I'll start with actually a quick disclaimer. I apologize. As Sarah mentioned, I am based in Israel, in the north of Israel in the Gilboa region, and we have been having a few sirens here today. So I was actually in a Zoom earlier today where I had to abruptly leave, and it looked very, very dramatic. But when there's a siren, I'll have to leave. So I apologize in advance if that happens. Thank you for dedicating your lunch in order to really learning more about what's going on the ground, and also how UJ is being involved. And it's really an opportunity to really share with you some of the sentiments and some of the voices that we have. And as Sarah mentioned, we work in Israel, and we have a team, and we have very close relationships and very personal relationships with a lot of people who are directly affected. And you don't need me in order to know what's going on in the news. So I did want to focus more about our personal relationships between the Jewish community in Toronto and our partner community in Bat Yam, which is one of the communities that's been mostly affected since the beginning of the war with Iran. As I'm sure all of you know, a few nights ago, there was a missile that hit in a residential area and created devastating damage. So it's really not an easy time to speak, and our hearts are very heavy with grief, because this is all very, very personal for all of us. But at the same time, I think you'll also find that the work that we're doing on the ground in Israel, and the work that the amazing community in Bat Yam is doing, is not only very important during these times, but also very uplifting. So I wanted to share a bit about background about the relationship that we have with Bat Yam, and then kind of dive into a bit about what I had the opportunity of seeing when I was there during the last 2 days and visits with leadership. So for more than 20 years, UJ and Bat Yam have built a really significant and amazing bond that goes beyond a partnership. It's really a relationship that's rooted in shared values, mutual respect that we have for one another, and a shared vision for the Jewish people and for Israel. And together, we've been investing in a lot of different things in Bat Yam, which some of you might know Bat Yam, some of you not, but Bat Yam is one of the most vulnerable communities out of the large cities of Israel. It neighbors with Tel Aviv, but on the other hand, has 160,000 people, which most of them are very, very vulnerable, has top 3 percentage in children with disabilities, vulnerable elderly, people who are new immigrants to Israel, and single parent households. So it's a very, very vulnerable population from the get-go. And as you can imagine, that means that for the last 20 years, we've been working with those populations in order to help them close gaps and have access to opportunities in order to help them and their families have a better and brighter futures. So as you can imagine, when a disaster of this magnitude, like the war and specifically the rocket attack that happened a couple of nights ago, goes on, it means that it meets the community even in a more vulnerable state. Now, this is true to any vulnerable community that gets hit. I know that Tamra in the north is one of those communities. Other neighborhoods around Israel have been hit very hard. But just to kind of recap what happened and what makes Bat Yam unique in that instance is not only the enormous death toll, unfortunately, but really the fact that you had 9 people who unfortunately lost their lives, more than 200 people who were injured, and 1,500 people who can't go back to their homes and have been evacuated. They basically 71 buildings were hit from the devastating attack. And you can imagine with such vulnerable population and such magnitude of residents being evacuated and needing to have special attention during these times just makes things that much more difficult. The fact that we were there also before with a relationship, as mentioned, that spans for 20 years, allowed us also to literally be first on the scene when it comes to seeing what do they need and how we can be of assistance. We've been working with them since October 7th also on how the municipality can prepare for emergency. So one of the programs that we've been working on with them together is called the Ambassadors Program, which helps residents from different buildings around Bat Yam be a point of contact in case of something horrible happening, and providing them with equipment and knowledge and expertise so they can spring into action and help the leadership of the municipality respond when the unimaginable and horrible happens. And thankfully, we were able to do that ahead of time. And when this tragedy happened, it really was worth its weight in gold and allowed us to be very responsive very, very, very soon. The fact also that we have personal relationships with the mayor and the CEO of the municipality allows us really direct access in order to see what they need, what they have more than enough of, what they might need in the future as well. So as you can imagine and understand, this puts the relationship with them in a very, very personal lens. So during the last few days, the team and I met with the mayor of Bat Yam, Tzvika Bot, and I know that Yaron, my friend and colleague, knows Tzvika excellent because he was his commander in the army. So we met with them and city officials, and we're really trying to see how we could be helpful. For me, it's a meeting that I will never forget. And we really stood among the broken glass and the shattered concrete. And the mayor, even though he was visibly exhausted, he spoke with such resolve and such determination, and you could see the glimmer in his eyes underneath the bags that were under his eyes. And the city leaders described how much fear and pain and a logistical nightmare all of this is for thousands that are now have to dealing with direct trauma. But they also spoke about the strength and determination and gratitude that they had to us for our support and for all the support that they're getting from all Am Yisrael during such difficult times. So we came there in order to give our friends and partners a hug and one short message from our community that we are here, not just now, but always. And this message for us is not only symbolic, but it really is a promise that we made years ago and that we still keep fulfilling today. I wanted to share with you a story about an amazing friend named Rinat. So Rinat, oh, apologies for that. After visiting the attack site, I called one of my personal friends, Rinat, in Bat Yam. And Rinat is not only a friend and a resident of Bat Yam, but she's also the head of community mobilization. So I came to meet her at the city command center, and it was probably a million times that I've seen Rinat before, but I've never seen her like this. She looked tired and restless and scattered and worried. At the same time, she looked energized and determined and motivated and really, really happy to see a familiar face that's not coming to ask for help, but actually providing a hug and a few words of comfort. So I asked her how she and her family were doing, and we talked a bit about the horrible events that took place. So she chose not to complain, but she actually spoke about the incredible spirit of Bat Yam and the residents who we trained during the ambassadors program that I mentioned earlier today, and said how much they were indispensable for their brothers and sisters. So she spoke about the incredible city's officials who, after losing loved ones and homes, were there for others, offering support, structure, and comfort while grieving themselves. I think this embodies really the spirit of Bat Yam and the spirit of Israel in whole. Another amazing thing she told me was that they're getting a lot of clothes, because I asked them, what are your basic needs? What do you need here and now? And she said, we have enough clothes. And then she shared with me the next amazing story, which I wanted to share with you, that obviously they get from a lot of retail shops, clothes and a lot of other items. But she said the most touching things that they got were actually items that came, which were used clothes, which are probably substandard because you could get new ones from the stores that are donating. But the reason why I was so emotional is because those clothes came from Kibbutz Be'eri and Kibbutz Cholet. And I know all of you know those names, and those were kibbutzim that on October 7th were invaded by Hamas, and people were murdered and taken hostage. And the fact that those communities sent the clothes that they received from October 7th and gave them to the people of Bat Yam, telling them, we're here for you. We know that you guys need it now more than we might need it. I think just speaks volumes of how Israeli society is, despite being tested, is very, very resilient and very strong. But that being said, still in need of help. So the way we are helping currently, as mentioned before, is not only with existing programs that we had in place, which made Bat Yam in a better position than they would have been without these programs in order to respond to the current emergency response programs that we've been doing with educators and first responders and for resilience are really, again, proving their weight in gold during these type of instances. But we're also working with city officials in order to understand what are their basic needs here and now and what are the needs moving forward. So through the work that we do with the Jewish Agency, and I know Yaron can probably expand on that as well, we're able to take part in the Fund of Victims of Terror, which some of you might know and are very familiar with, but essentially being able to provide any person who lost a loved one or their home for the next 3 months with an immediate financial grant in order to help them purchase items that they had to leave behind and are not able to reclaim, and in order to get their affairs in order for the very, very near future. In addition to that, we're working with the municipality to exactly map what kind of assistance people who are currently in the hotels need. If those are educational needs, if they're talking about respite or non-formal education needs, if we're talking about mental health. So we're working with different NGOs in order to see how we can provide a holistic approach, which will provide them everything that they might need. In addition, we're also working with other global leaders and Jewish federations around the world. The 2 meetings I mentioned that I had in Bat Yam during the last 2 days were with JFNA and Keren HaYesod and other Jewish federations from around the world who want to work together with us, knowing that Bat Yam is our partner community and that we know the people very well, to help connect them to the needs on the ground, to work together in a holistic way in order to make sure that there isn't any wasteful philanthropic efforts, and that Bat Yam have everything they need in the most efficient and effective way possible. So we know that we've been working with Bat Yam for the last 20 years, and Be'ezrat Hashem, that bond will only continue and grow stronger. And how in the face of devastation, we don't just rebuild, we really build forward stronger, smarter, and united. So obviously we will be in close communication with you and the rest of the community about our efforts moving forward. And this is a great opportunity to tell you, thank you again for your support. We feel the love here in Israel. We feel the good vibes that everyone is sending, and it makes us feel stronger and that we're not alone. And that is something that's priceless. And so thank you so much for the opportunity of speaking today and articulating that.
You, Willie. We are all frozen. We're all praying for everybody in Israel and hoping and wishing you and your family only safety. And we're all thinking about you, and we're all here for you
Thank you
as
so
you are
much.
here on the ground in Israel for
Thank you
us
so much.
in Toronto. So thank you so, so much. We're going to have a chance to hear a little bit more from Willie after, just with some questions that are coming through. But as Willie said, he really is, you know, because he runs the UJ team on the ground in Israel, he's physically going to Bat Yam. He is meeting, as he said, with the leadership in the municipality there. He is going and checking out firsthand with the other staff that work for UJA in Toronto, but in Israel on the ground, to get, again, a sense of the scope of the real-time needs. Willie mentioned, but I think also I just want to emphasize, we are able to deploy funds to help with immediate relief because of the annual campaign. Because we run a campaign every year and we have a relationship with these communities, with Israel, obviously, and the Jewish Agency as a whole, but also in particular with Bat Yam and Eilat and Sderot, the Toronto Jewish community, our partner cities. When something takes place, and because we have the annual campaign funding going to Israel for Willie and his team to work with all the time, we don't actually have any delay in providing that kind of help and support. And so I see some of you who are on this Zoom right now who are very active in the annual campaign, and I just want to thank you again because of your ongoing support before, I'd say even before October 7th, it allowed us to help so quickly and to be nimble right after October 7th and as things literally change by the day. So thank you. With that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Yaron Dekel, who again, for those who have just joined, Yaron leads the delegation for the Jewish Agency in Canada and has a tremendous amount of experience, both as a journalist and political expert in Middle East affairs. So Yaron, over to you. And just for everyone, Yaron is Israeli. Yaron is based in Toronto for now as a representative of the Jewish Agency. Yaron, over to you for a geopolitical update.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for the introduction. And I'd like to thank you for the wonderful work you and your team are doing along the year, and especially in the time of need. And I'm very proud to be a representative of the Jewish Agency, which is the main partner of the UJA Federation here in Toronto. I know how much effort you are doing in this, and I'm very grateful. And also to Willie and his team, which I know in person, working in Bat Yam and Sderot and other parts of Israel in the time of need and in a time when there is no war, to try to promote those communities and to be helpful with the connection to the wonderful community here in Toronto. So first of all, thank you very much, and also thank you for having me to speak a little bit about what's going on right now in the region. Thursday today is exactly 1 week since Israel initiated the war against Iran. And there are two strategic goals for this operation. One is trying to eliminate the nuclear threat, which Iran had promoted in the last 20 years, with explicit threat to wipe Israel off the map repeatedly by different leaders of Iran in the last 20 years. And the second goal is to try to eliminate the ballistic missiles, which we see in the last few days, targeting different parts of Israel, south, center, and north. Now, change of the regime in Iran is not one of the goals of the State of Israel and the government of Israel. There are some comments about that, but this is not the official position of the government of Israel. And we believe that such a change in the regime could come from the Iranian people. Many people ask why now. Prime Minister Netanyahu threatened or put the Iranian issue on the agenda for years and years. And I think there was the reason it happened now or a week ago, because there was a rare opportunity that Israel could try and block Iran of having such a nuclear weapon. Iran deceived the world in the last few months or weeks when there was a negotiation between Iran and the United States under President Trump, when Israel discovered and the intelligence of Israel discovered that they accelerate the efforts to produce a nuclear bomb and also nuclear weapon, and also accelerating the effort to complete the producing the production of the missile who can carry the bomb. So there are two tracks of the Iranians, and both were accelerated when they were talking with the United States. So this is one reason. It was clear that they are not into a peace that will diffuse and will stop this process and the race to a nuclear weapon, but the opposite. The second reason, President Trump said that when the United States started negotiation with Iran, and there were a couple of meetings mainly in Oman, but not only in Oman, that he expected the negotiation to take place for 60 days. Israel was waiting for those 60 days, knowing that if this negotiation will be fruitful, there is no chance Israel going to attack against the United States' will to complete the negotiation. But negotiation was stuck. Israel was waiting for 60 days, and Israel attacked on the 61st day. So it was a rare window opportunity of A, acceleration of the process, and B, not contradicting with President Trump, who got information about the attack before. We have seen in the first 48 hours an incredible success of the Israeli intelligence, of the army, of the Israeli Mossad, and the Israeli Air Force. And we have seen that Israel was able to target the batteries of that protect Iran from the aircrafts of the Israeli Air Force, but also targeting the commanders and the leadership of the Iranian army and the Revolutionary Guards, which was a total surprise to the Iranian leadership. On the other hand, we see in the last few days that Iran has still capability to cause destruction in Israel. About 90% of the ballistic missiles were intercepted by the Israeli Arrow and American help, but 10% were not intercepted, and they caused mass destruction and also casualties. So far, we have unfortunately 24 civilians who were killed in the last 7 days, and over 300 people were injured. This morning, there was a very massive strike on a hospital in the south, Soroka Hospital in Beersheba, which was destroyed. Luckily, people were just injured because they got into a shutter. The distance between Iran and Israel get people to have an alert for around 10 minutes so they can get into a shelter. It's not like from Gaza, which is only 90 seconds in Tel Aviv if there is a rocket being shot from Gaza. The target of Iran is civilian population. The targets of Israel, military, nuclear sites, military sites, camps of the army, and commanders of the Revolutionary Guard and the Iranian army. Now, during the last 7 days, Israel destroyed most of the capability of the missiles, but they still have, according to the information we have, around 1,700 missiles, which is quite a lot. And what Israel is trying to attack is the bases where they're being launched, because if they cannot launch those missiles, they'll be stuck with the 1,700 missiles. Now, many people asked after 7 days, what's next? Where are we heading next after 7 days? And there are two scenarios that I'd like to share with you, and they are very different than each other. The first scenario, which is being hoped by I think most of the Israelis and also by the Israeli government, that the United States president decides to intervene and to what we call finish the job in terms of the nuclear site, which was damaged only lightly in in an area called Fordow, near the city of Qom. It's deep in the ground. It's very, very, very well protected, and only the U.S. has bombs that can penetrate such a base under the ground, which, because of the depth it is, it's a few dozens of meters deep in the ground, and the U.S. has the B-2 that could be helpful. Israel doesn't have this capability. Now, if the US intervenes, it can, from one way, to finish the war because the mission is completed. And the Iranians will not be able to produce and renew the nuclear process for a very, very long time, if at all. On the other hand, another scenario that if the United States intervenes, the Iranian regime decides to retaliate. They can close the Strait of Hormuz, for instance, for ships, and then the price of oil will rise immediately. They can launch air drones on American bases in the Gulf, or try to even attack American ships in the Gulf. And then the US finds itself in a war against Iran, which President Trump in his campaign promised the American people it's not going to happen in his administration. Another scenario that the United States helps Israel to defend itself, but doesn't intervene with an active bombing of this site. We are talking on the same site of Fordow, near the city of Qom. Then Israel continues to attack whatever Israel can do to make the massive damage for the nuclear process and to the ballistic missiles till there is a ceasefire. Now, if we look back at the history of Israel, most of the wars, except of the war against the Hamas, actually, all the wars except of the war against Hamas after the atrocities of October 7th, and it's important to remember that we still have 53 hostages, 20 of them believed to be alive in the hands of the Hamas, the terrorist organization in Gaza. All the wars since 1948 ended in a ceasefire, either led by the US or by the UN. In this case, if there is a ceasefire in the future, and it won't take months, there is an estimation that Israel needs another week or so to complete all the targets with those two goals, the nuclear sites and the ballistic missiles. Now, it's important to understand that if Israel gets to the point, it will take the Iranians a long time, if at all, to renew, if they have any appetite to do so. Now, before I conclude, I'd like to mention the bigger picture, which is quite optimistic, and it's important for us to know. If we look at the axis of evil in the last 2 years, the Hezbollah, the terrorist organization in Lebanon, which is a 100% proxy of Iran, is very weak after the work Israeli army had done in the north against the Hezbollah, and they don't intervene right now. They let Iran fighting against Israel without Hezbollah intervening because they don't want to get the Israeli army back to Lebanon. Syria, which was part of the Iran axis of evil, is not a threat. The opposite. The new ruler of Syria met President Trump, and he has signaled that he is more into getting to the West than to Iran. Iran is a huge enemy of the new regime of Syria. It was part of the axis of evil. Hamas, which is still in Gaza, is very weak. It's not the same Hamas of October 6th. And Iran is shocked by the effect of Israel, and it's also shocked by the intelligence Israel had about everybody in Iran and about the nuclear sites and about the missiles. This is a new Middle East with much less threats to Israel than it was a year and a half ago. Israel had the atrocity of October 7, which was a major event in our lives as Israelis and for the world, I think. But since then, Israel fought in all the fronts together with a big success. Now we have to see if the mission is completed, within the next week or 10 days, as Israel anticipates. So I'm very optimistic that the success will continue and the Middle East will be much safer as it was before. Sarah, back to you.
Thanks so much, Yaron. I'm just going to open the floor. If people have questions, please just click on the question button at the bottom, and I'm happy to come to you. Yaron, from your perspective here on the ground, the relationship between Canada and Israel has never, or between the Jewish community here, I'd say, we are tight, we are strong, we've come together. We just had the biggest walk with Israel we've ever had in the history, certainly of Canada, but I actually think we had more people even than New York, not that it's a competition. But what else would you tell people here that we should be doing right now to support, aside from the obvious, which is, we're currently assessing the needs and figuring out how we can help philanthropically, but what else can we be doing?
Well, first of all, the work that you are doing in UJA Toronto is highly appreciated by the Israelis. It's well known, not only by us in the Jewish Agency, but it's well known that the Canadian Jewish community, and particularly Toronto, is the biggest and the most influential community, is so supportive since October 7. It's amazing and highly appreciated. Now, the level of supports is in different layers. The number of delegations came to Israel from the community is unprecedented. It's amazing. Not only visiting the sites in the south or in the north, but generally volunteering. I know some people who came from the community to volunteer for a week, for a month. So appreciated, so helpful. So this is one thing that always the great Canadian and Toronto community can continue doing once the Ben Gurion airport is going to be open, and it won't be closed for a very long time. The other thing is the support with the campaigns, which you do all year round, but there was an emergency campaign you did, and the victims of terror funds, helping those who were affected by the atrocities, including the Nova Festival victims and their families, is highly supported by you, your campaign, and your donation to the victims of terror funds. Another thing that I think is done, and it's wonderful, is working in the social media. The social media is so important. It's a battleground. It's the modern battleground. And I know that these are not easy times sometimes for the community here with the rise of anti-Semitism. And we see that. And we are in the Jewish Agency. We do whatever we can to support the community. We have 39 emissaries in Canada. Most of them are in Toronto. 20 Shinshinim are doing a wonderful work in the day schools, in synagogues, and JCCs, and we continue to say we here with you at a challenging time. But I believe that a strong Israel is the interest of the Jewish community in Toronto, and a strong Jewish community is the interest of the state of Israel, and the Jewish community, and the government of Israel, and the people of Israel. It's very important. This is part of our job to remember that strong community helps Israel, strong Israel helps community. So keep on doing the job you are doing wonderfully, highly appreciated in all layers, as I mentioned. The campaign is important, volunteering is important, missions are important, social media is important. Keep on doing it, please. It's wonderful.
Thanks, Yaron. Willie, I'm going to ask you to come back on for a moment, if you can. There we go.
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much. I'm wondering, we have a question just for some more detail on who in particular you, the UJA team, is working with directly in Israel. Is it municipalities? Yes, but you can shed light. Which government officials? Are we working with other organizations? Maybe I'm kind of looking at this and thinking, Willie, it might be helpful to just provide almost some basic information about how our Israel and overseas function operates and how we support, hundreds of other organizations and causes on the ground in Israel and vet those projects.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. That's an excellent question. Happy to go into detail about that. As mentioned before, and as Yaron mentioned wonderfully, we have a very, very close relationship with the Jewish Agency, which, as I'm sure some of you know, is the largest Jewish NGO in the world. So obviously that relationship is very important for us and very strategic because it allows us to do many, many, many different things, which the Jewish Agency are leading. And we have another core partner, which is the Joint Distribution Committee, which also deals with much more humanitarian aid and is also always very, very essential during these times. The way we work is through our Israel and Overseas Committee. So I'll try to keep it kind of short and sweet. But once the funds are raised through annual campaign or in times of emergency, we have a group of lay leadership that are part of the Israel and Overseas Committee. And together with them, we compile certain guidelines and protocol on how we are to distribute those type of funds based on criteria that are approved by the UJA board. And the way we go about it is that we work directly with the officials on the ground. Either it's government officials, so we have very strong relationships with ministries. As mentioned before, we work with municipalities, not only our partner communities of Sderot, Bat Yam, and Eilat and Hevel Eilot, but also with other heads of communities all over Israel in a direct way, in order to pinpoint exactly not only what needs they have, but what unique added value UJ would have within that map of needs. Because as I'm sure you know, we as a community, and Yaron mentioned it in a very beautiful and generous way, we are a very generous community and we always try to punch above our weight. And the way we're able to do that is working with the right partners, like mentioned the Jewish Agency, JDC. We also work in very, very close relationship, as I mentioned earlier, with other philanthropists in order to ensure that we're not duplicating efforts, but that we're actually leveraging off each other and create instances where 1 + 1 = 3 and not doing duplication. So we're in very close relationships with the JFNA, which is the umbrella organization for all of North America, UIA Canada, which is the umbrella organization for all the federations and communities in Canada, and philanthropists from all over the world, including Israel. Putting all that into the blender, we reach out to NGOs and have personal relationships also with NGOs for which the municipalities operate with and communities. And then we assess all the different needs between what the municipalities and local authorities and government are telling us what they need and what responses are out there, and seeing what other funds are available, and then understanding together what is our unique added value proposition to ensure that we're really, really being meaningful and substantial when it comes to responding in times of emergency and also in times of routine. So I hope that wasn't overcomplicated and helped kind of shed some light on that.
No, I think very helpful. I also just want to shed some light on how we've been operating since October 7th. I think many people on the call likely participated in our Israel emergency campaign, where we raised an additional $75 million to send to Israel. That's where this committee that Willie's talking about has been vetting projects and really sending funds to meet immediate needs. Now, of course, we're looking and evaluating the new needs that are coming up as a result. And this is where it's incredibly important that, again, we're only putting out needs to the community that have been vetted. And that's what UJ's role is, to really bring the expert sort of, we call them planners, but strategists, data scientists, people who are on the ground in the work, who are vetting the projects and making sure that if we're prepared to put philanthropic dollars in from the community, it's to something that will not otherwise be covered by government. So our first step, as you heard from Willie, is always to make sure that we understand what the government is putting in first to the rebuild. So we're not coming in and asking community to donate something that is to donate to something that is already going to be covered. Philanthropy has to step in where government can't, and that's or can't or is slower moving, which is what Willie's been talking about. And one of those big areas post October 7th was, of course, what he was mental health, PTSD support, immediate funding to victims of terror and their families. And that's, again, like what we'll continue to do through annual campaign. We have another question. We have quite a few questions about what's taking place here. And I'm just going to ask Tamara, actually, my colleague who's on this call, to share in the chat, if she can, the action alert from CEJA. One of the questions that we're getting is about how we can make our voice heard in Canada to lobby Canadian government and also recruit and mobilize our allies to stand with us right now against extremism. Because again, this is not just the Jewish community. This is not just Israel's fight. This is a Canadian fight. This is a fight of anyone who holds Western values. This is a fight for freedom, and it truly, truly is. And we've been seeing a shift in the narrative. Certainly, it's not enough of a shift, but somewhat of a shift. Thank you so much. So you can look in the chat here, but CEJA has been incredibly active lobbying government. For the since October 7th, certainly they've been working day and night on these issues, but certainly since Israel and Iran's conflict escalated, they have been speaking with the Prime Minister's office daily. They are really harnessing the whole power of our community, our voices, and working through UJ's other funded agency, Allies for a Strong Canada, which is the non-Jewish allied community led by non-Jews for people outside of the Jewish community, funded by UJA, to bring together non-Jewish voices as well. So in the chat, you'll see an action alert where we've recruited already more than 6,000 community members over the last 4 days to make their voice heard to government. If you're willing to submit a letter there, that would be hugely helpful, because we need to stand up and we need as many people within the Jewish community and our allies to stand with us, because our government needs to understand that this is not a Jewish issue. This is a much broader issue, and that we share this threat equally. And that is the message that we need to carry out to our friends, to our peers, to colleagues. Use your voice. You can do that here in Toronto. It's incredibly important at this moment. I'm just going to check. We have some other last questions that we can address. So maybe, I guess for Yaron first here, but we talk about the fact that even though a change of regime is not Israel's goal in Iran, do you think that that is something that could be expected? Do you think it's imminent? Is that what we're seeing happen on the ground in Iran at the moment? Or is it too early?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the beginning
Oh,
of the
it's
question.
okay. We're saying even though Israel didn't go in with a goal of regime change in Iran,
Right.
but,
Okay.
do you think that that's something that's expected? Do you think that's something that's imminent? Like, are we starting to see the crumbling of the Iranian regime, the current regime?
It's a very good question, and I cannot anticipate the future. I can always look back to the past. The last few experiments of a regime change were not very successful. The United States tried it in Afghanistan, and after 20 years, the US left and the Taliban is back. The United States tried it with Iraq, and following with the Saddam Hussein, we have lots of militias, and some people say that Iraq is less secured and safe than it was under the brutal regime of Saddam Hussein at that time. Israel had tried it once in Lebanon in 1983, in the first Lebanon war, to have a new president who was willing to sign a peace treaty with Israel. And he signed a peace treaty with Israel in 1983, but then he was assassinated. His name is Bashir Gemayel. So a regime change, as I see it, and I think the Israeli leadership sees that the same, can come from the Iranian people. It cannot be imposed by someone else. It has to come from within the country. Now, we have seen in the last 20, 30 years regime changes in different countries in the Eastern Bloc, and many of them turned to be democracies. We have seen that after World War II in Japan or in other places in the world. So the question of a regime change could be a byproduct if the Iranian people think that this regime is not doing any good to the country, and they will work to try to change the regime. It cannot be imposed, as I see, not by the Israeli government, nor by the United States administration. That's why it's not on the goals, the official goals of the war. The ballistic missiles and the nuclear weapon is not the official goals of the war of Israel.
Okay, I'm going to go one last question for Yaron, and then I just want to say a few words about the Canadians who are stuck in Israel at the moment and how we're working on sort of different fronts related to the current situation. So Yaron, maybe just very briefly, there are actually a few questions just about, I guess, I don't even know, what you can say on this, but Fordo in particular and how deep underground it is. There are a lot of questions just about whether or not any military experts have actually indicated whether or not it's possible to reach it, to achieve any sort of success there.
In Iran?
Yeah, in Fordo.
In Fordo. The assumption is that to succeed with Fordo, there is a need for the US B-2. We like it or not, the Iranians were thinking of the main site, how to protect it, and it's very difficult to penetrate. So the reason that the Israeli government would seek an active assistance and help from President Trump is that once the Fordo is out of this equation, the chance of renewing the nuclear process going to be very close to zero. When it's still there, it's a matter of time. It years, how many years, months? For sure, what happened will slow down the process immensely, but it's not going it's not going to be out of this equation as we would like it to be. So it's very important, and it's up to the president of the United States to make this decision. It's on his table. We know it. He said it publicly that this is to get involved in the operation. It's on his table, and he said, "I'm not going to say what I'm going to decide."
Thanks, Yaron. So we've had quite a few questions about other involvement that we as a Toronto Jewish community and UJ have had since the conflict with Iran formally began. Obviously, the airspace is closed. There are many Canadians who are still in Israel. Just a couple quick notes on what's taking place. So there were a number of birthright trips and onward Israel trips there with university students. At the time, UJ worked with our partners on the ground to make sure that all of those young people were moved very quickly into safe areas, many of whom went down to a hotel at the Dead Sea. We've also been helping them exit either on boat or arrange sort of a safe place to stay in groups. We have many Canadians and young people who were there like post-university, pre their summer plans, sometimes at camp, who were traveling by themselves. And we've, where possible, been able to take some of those young people and help them join groups so they're not traveling alone, so they can actually be part of some sort of social cohort or group where they can then, again, be in either a shelter or a place where they have access to food and information and potentially a plan out of the country. So UJ has played a very key role in doing that as well. For the people who are still there, who haven't been able to get on boats, one of the teams that Willie works with is an organization called Kedma. We have other organizations as well who are operating youth villages and operating on kibbutzim. And so what we've been able to do is actually take some of these younger people who are frightened and alone, and we've been able to actually put them into not just a cohort of Canadians, but actually have them participate in volunteer activities and stay on kibbutzim where they can be safe, but also plugged into programs while they're still in Israel. So again, they're part of a community. They're not sort of sitting backpacking by themselves. So we're doing what we can with the limited options that we have at the moment while the airspace is closed. Obviously, as things evolve, we're in discussions to see what we can do to help people leave and also to help people go back to Israel, because there are so many people here as well who are trying to reach Israel. On the ground here, we've been in discussions with the Israeli consulate to help provide housing through UJA for Israelis who are stuck here and can't get home and need a place to stay. So if you do know of anybody who's looking for somewhere to stay, please make sure to reach out to UJA. You can reach out to info@Jewish Toronto. And we are very happy to help facilitate housing for those people. It's really also important to note that in moments like this, crises, UJ really is getting involved in all different respects. And one of the things that was put on the table at the very beginning for us to consider is the impact that this has on camps. And it's something that so many of us didn't think about, but Jewish summer camps, all summer camps are starting end of next week. And a lot of the Jewish summer camps are counting on shlichim, shinshinim, Israeli staff coming from Israel who no longer can fly to those camps. And a lot of the university students who work at Jewish summer camps in Ontario, who are at school in Ontario, between end of school, their final exams, and when they start working at camp, go on birthright. They travel Israel. And so some of them are also there, which has posed a challenge for our camps. We have to make sure that we have hundreds of staff positions that were meant to be filled by end of next week. And so that's also a role that UJ is playing right now. We also have a lot of long-term Israel trips that are supposed to be going this summer. Many sort of, of these programs, Billowing Israel, things like that. And unfortunately, those trips have been canceled. And so those young people also need to change their summer plans. And so UJ is playing a role trying to help facilitate sort of where we can have people whose Israel trips were canceled, plugging into camps, where we have people who can't come to camps, making sure camp has support. But really important to note that if there's an issue that you think we need to be addressing and you haven't heard about it yet, send an email to that address that's in the chat. But whether it's housing for Israelis here, getting Canadians out, helping with the destruction in Bat Yam, helping the Jewish summer camps make sure that they have the staff that they need, this is our role. This is our role as UJA to make sure that we are constantly the strongest community that we can be. And that is not just here in Toronto, that's in Israel. So I just want to end by thanking so much Willie on the ground, who's leading this team day in and day out, and Yaron for doing the incredible work that you are doing, really facilitating that relationship between Canada and Israel. The Jewish Agency is obviously our most significant partner in Israel, and we are so grateful for all of the incredible work that they are doing. And for all of you who are on this call and who are active community members, taking an interest, taking time out of your day, if you're contributing in any way through your volunteer hours, through philanthropy, thank you, thank you, thank you. And we will continue to host these kinds of opportunities as the situation evolves. Thanks, everybody, and have a safe day, and we will talk soon.
Thank you. Shabbat Shalom.
Bye.